At InDigital, we know that public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI Net goes beyond industry standards, not only i3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why, since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
Welcome to Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them.
Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and this is going to be Within the Trenches, true stories from the 911 dispatchers who live them. This episode is sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy, and we are getting closer and closer to the final Dare to Be Great. Dare to Be Great 3. It has been an amazing experience, and just so much has happened. I mean, it's March 29th right now, and in just a couple of weeks, we'll be going into the anniversary of the first one, but also the anniversary of when we started, when I started putting all of this together to begin with. And I believe it was about 2.5 weeks that it took to put it all together, and I did not sleep much. Much like now with a lot of the virtual events that are going on, and I'm sure with this last one, number 3, that's going to go in, but it has been such an amazing experience. And you know what? Who knows? Maybe in a couple of years we'll have another one or something. We'll have a one more time type Dare to Be Great. But it has just been so good to be able to bring all these amazing speakers as well as industry partners together and have all of this continuing education, all these hours worth of free continuing education out there, so that 911 dispatchers and call takers can go in and they can still register for all of the ones that have been out already, and just take in all of this information and continue to learn and learn and learn, because that's what it's all about. It's that Dare to Be Great moment. And from the beginning of COVID-19, this pandemic, all the way up until even now, and however long it goes, whichever, they're going to have all of this. When training conferences and everything were being postponed or canceled, and it looked like there wasn't going to be a lot of that going on, a lot of these virtual events that came out were here to be able to continue to give that education to the most vital piece of public safety, and that is all of the 911 dispatchers and call takers of literally the world. There were so many people from all over the place who were involved and attended live or have gone back to watch on demand on their time. So thank you all so very much for all of that. And it's going to be amazing. So thank you. I'm excited for my guest today, and she's actually also a speaker for Dare to Be Great 3. So there's a lot that we're going to learn about our guest today, not only from her career, but what she is doing presently for the dispatch community. She, from what I've seen, has such a deep passion for this industry, and I'm looking forward to this episode. So, my guest today is Edie DeVilbiss, and common spelling, as she mentioned to me earlier, which was amazing. I loved it. And she is also with Shape Good Habits. So, here we are. Hey there.
Hi, how are you, Ricardo?
I am doing very, very well. And how about yourself?
Wonderful. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Hey. Thanks. This is going to be good. I've been wanting to have you on for a while now, actually, especially when I started seeing you put out these videos, which we're going to get to here shortly. But I want to learn more about you and your public safety background. But I also want to point out that that you did get the memo that we've got our green screens going. So that is excellent.
I'm so excited.
This is gonna be good. I've been looking forward to this one. So for those who are watching and listening and everything, how did you get into public safety? How do you come from a public safety background, or it just came up and let's jump in, let's see what this is all about?
Yeah. So I lived in a suburb of Denver called Broomfield, and we had a little local newspaper called the Broomfield Enterprise. I was working at a department store selling cosmetics, and I got a really good raise. I got 15 cents an hour. I was up to $3.65 an hour in 1983.
Amazing.
Wonderful. And I kept seeing ads for police dispatcher, $7.19 an hour to start. And I would look at that ad and I can't do that. And I think the third time that I saw it start running, I thought, you know what? I might not be able to do it, but I can always go back to selling lipstick. And so I applied and went in for the test, and they had a cassette recorder, and they played different things. We had to alphabetize something, and they played a call of a bomb threat at the local middle school where my son was. And when I turned in my paper, I said, I don't know how I did on this test, but man, I learned some stuff today. And I left and I, kept going to work. And so I was not the first person selected. She went all the way through training and quit her first night on her own. And I got hired. And the training was, I think, about 3 months. It was a very small department, one dispatcher on at a time. And the other 4 full-time dispatchers each had a hand in training me. My very first day was Halloween, 1983. And I remember it was Halloween because that's my daughter's birthday.
Oh.
And so I go in at 7 o'clock in the morning, all bright-eyed and shiny-faced and ready to answer phones and take care of people. And the dispatcher on duty looked at me and says, "You're going for a ride along." Okay. So I got in the car with this young officer who had the department's only dog, Justice. The officer was John. Mm-hmm. So Justice, I don't love dogs. I don't hate dogs. I'm pretty neutral. I only like dogs if they have a certain vibe. I don't know. Justice didn't have that vibe yet. So we went on a burglary call, and the officer's taken the information. There's a lot of information. A lot of stuff is missing. He's taken the information, and he runs out of paper, and he sends me to the car to get something out of the car where Justice is. Do you think I got in that car?
I wouldn't have.
I was like, no, this is not going to work. And I thought, what have I gotten myself into? But it got better. It got better. And so I got put out on my own on the midnight. Well, I was the cover. I was 32 hours a week. So I did 2 swing shifts and 2 midnights to cover the days off for the other 2 dispatchers. And then there was another part-time who came in Saturday, Sunday for the day shift supervisor. So once we were on our own, we were on our own.
Oh, wow. So, okay, let's back up a little bit, because you asked that question about getting in there with the dog and then not having, the vibe and all. I remember a ride along early on in my training. I had to ride with it was a state police trooper, and he was also, canine. And I remember throughout the whole ride, I rode with him all day.
Mhm.
And at the end of it, he goes, I want to talk to you a little bit, and I want to show you something. And I said, okay. So I get out, we're in the parking lot, I'm getting ready to leave and stuff. And we're standing in the back of his cruiser, and he's got a ball. And he goes, I'm gonna give this to you, but you need to catch it fast. And I said, okay. And he threw it, and like the dog motioned, and I grabbed onto it, and he gave out some sort of command. I don't know what language it was in, because canines, canine officers and all, when they're trained, it's in a completely different language. And so he had given it a command, the dog a command. The dog just kind of sat there, and then it started to walk away. And then he gave it another command. But right before that, he told me to put the ball behind my back. So I did. He gives this command. The dog comes running up and is just like chomping, barking and chomping.
No.
Like you can hear the teeth like just clasping against each other. And I'm just standing there looking at the trooper, and I'm like, so what's going on here? And he's just talking to me like nothing. And the funny thing was that, the dog, it almost seemed like for a moment there, so the dog stopped barking and looks over at the trooper, almost as if to say, are we going to do something here? Like what's going on? And then the dog just starts walking away, gives the same command, comes back and starts chomping again. And then he goes, okay. He gives it a command. The dog stops. He goes, I want you to throw the ball. And when you toss the ball up, you need to move your hand fast. So I toss it, and I moved back just in time, because the dog ended up getting the ball. And I thought, this is it freaked me out, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things that I will never forget, probably like you as well, with that ride along. Yeah, all ready to go in and do all this stuff, but you're on the ride along and you've got this dog that's just not completely vibing.
Yeah. Yeah. My heart is racing. I'm like, oh my gosh. Because they have such strong jaws, and they're just, oh yeah. They're very, and Justice was a sweet dog, but not when he was protecting the car. And
For
I'm
sure.
sure the dog that the canine that you were with was a sweet animal when not protecting and not being commanded.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
it was very exciting. Yeah, I grew up terrified of guns, and so yeah, police work, of course. Why not?
What are
So,
the odds? Right.
what are the odds? Yes.
Now, you mentioned that this was $7.19 an hour, and
Yes.
this is in 1983.
Yes.
So when I started dispatching, it was 2001, and I believe I started out at 725.
Oh, that's tragic.
Yeah, and this was in you're right. You're right. This was in Central Florida, a small, tiny police department. The county that I was working in, it was Polk County. And at the time, I don't know if it's still the same now, but at least at that time, it was the lowest paying county. But the cost of living, believe it or not, was like way, way down. So I lived on the lake in this 2-bedroom, 1-bath house that had a deck and everything, and my rent was only like $500 or something. So it actually worked out. The math worked out and all, but it's funny to hear you say that, when you were doing makeup and everything, that working at the counter, it was, it was like 3 something. And then
I think my raise was to $3.65 an hour. Yeah. So it was almost double to go to the police department.
So then you go through, you end up getting the job, and Well, so obviously you found out, that first day that other person ended up quitting and stuff. Did that, before you went ahead and said yes, did that make you think at all like, should I
No,
do this?
no, that would have been planning ahead. Come on. No, no, no. I wanted the money, and the boss I had at the department store would not make a schedule more than 1 week in advance.
Mhm.
And I have 3 children, and it was a pain. This was a stable schedule. I didn't know I was going to have a headache every day for 3 months, but and do you remember the feeling when they said you're on your own?
Yes. Yeah, I do. So the small police department, that feeling, like I knew I was going to have it. I knew it was going to be all right. But what happened to me that first night on my own was a little different, because it was the first time that I dealt with a suicidal call. But this call, we say a call, like a phone call, it was actually because people could walk into the police department to, do a
Mm-hmm.
complaint or whichever. Well, that's how this one ended up happening. The complaint, when it came in, this suicidal call, it was a wife who had found her husband. She ran into the police department to tell the chief and I that she had found her husband. So it was building up to the moment that the chief was getting ready to leave. I remember being kind of nervous, like, this is going to be my first night. And because that first hour, I believe, being on night shift, was around the time that it was when he was going to leave. So that building up, there was nerves, but right up until that moment, I was thinking I was going to be okay. And then that call happens, or that person runs in. And when that person ran in, um, all of those feelings were gone. It was in the zone, doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But as you ask, do you remember that feeling? What was that feeling like for you then?
Absolute terror.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that I wasn't ready. I absolutely knew. I remember in training the very first time I picked up. Now, I started before 911. We didn't have the Annie and Allie. I loved when those came in. I picked up the emergency line. It was the first time I was answering calls, and they needed an ambulance for a heart attack. I put them on hold to ask my trainer what to do. She said, Edie, you know what to do. Oh, yes, I do. Okay. And so I kind of shook my own confidence then. But probably a week, maybe 2 after I started, and it was a small town, right? There's
Mm-hmm.
nothing open except the 7-Eleven. At that time, I think the 7-Eleven was the only thing open all night. There weren't even any gas stations open all night, and there was not a gas station at the 7-Eleven. And so I'd have 1 or 2 officers on duty. So sleepy little town,
Mm-hmm.
suburbia. So it was one of the evening shifts that I worked, probably 2 weeks in. I got a call from the local grocery store, and the assistant manager was upstairs in the office, and there was a man with a coat on, who had something sharp under his coat, and he had the manager by his arm, and they were walking around the store. So I dispatched it out. I got officers set up, and I told them every move, everything that this guy said, and kept it calm, kept it easy. And it turned out that he was a little bit overwhelmed with grief.
Mm-hmm.
He had a picture of his deceased wife in his coat, and he was talking to the manager. But it was a very tense situation, and it was a corporal who was in charge that day. And when he debriefed the call with the team, and he did let me come in and sit down in the roll call as he debriefed it, he said, you did a really, really good job, Edie. And he was talking to his officers. Now, you guys set up a crossfire. This was not a good deal. And so the officers had not handled it correctly, but I had. And that felt really, really good. I was like, okay. all right. So it wasn't quite, the classic turning to caca, but
Yeah.
but it was a tense enough situation that it made me feel like maybe I could do this, because they were just as nervous about having me as I was in being the chair. Their lives are on the line.
Right.
So yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
And so that those who are watching and listening can kind of get an idea of what it is. So where you're sitting, what are you looking at? Like what does that look like for you? Are there multiple screens? What does the phone look like? Or what is it that you're working with at that time?
We still have a handset.
Hmm.
It wasn't a dial. At least it was a push button. Um, let's see. The console itself was built by the sergeant. It was plywood. It was beautifully varnished.
Hmm.
But the radio was set in. I had a key to press to talk on the radio. And we had a foot pedal, but there was no, eventually I had a headset where we had the clip where you could do the mic from the headset.
Hmm.
But no, I had to pick up the phone. I still have a knot in my shoulder from holding the phone. Ow, that hurt. My daughter's a massage therapist, and she's like, "Mom, I don't know if we'll ever get that thing out." But let's see. I've got one computer. We didn't have CAD yet. And I've got the time clock because we still have to punch the time for when the call starts and when the time, when they go out. So on the card, we punch the time that the officer calls out. We write down the license plate and location. And we keep those. And there's a log where we log everything. So we have this big book where we log the calls. So you have to write neatly. And you have to remember to write them down, all two of them. So yeah, it was way, way different.
Man. So with the time clock, now this is for every single traffic that comes over then, right? So let's say,
Yeah,
they
they're
check
just,
out and
yeah.
then you check it. And then, let's say you waited 3 minutes to say, status, they say 10-4, status 10-4, whichever, then you would punch it again.
I don't think we punched status checks, but
Mhm.
yeah, we punched every time they went out and every time they cleared.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. And everything was done by hand. Everything. I take notes like a mad woman. When I was in school, so part of my history is that I've been in school all of this century.
Mhm.
I tried to take notes on the computer, and I do so much better by hand because that was my earliest training. Now I got good on the computer. I got good on CAD, but the handwriting is the fastest for me.
That's awesome. I remember back in when I was in dispatch, this is probably now 2007, 2008, when we had people coming in for training and such. And I remember someone saying, "So what happens when the system goes down? Like, how do you take all the information down?" And I remember some of us sitting there just kind of laughing and going, we would go like this, and we pick up our notepads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you see
Yeah.
that the pen and stuff you've been using, that's how you write down what they're saying, their times and everything, because when the system comes back up, guess what you get to do? You get to
put
type it
on
all
there.
in.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to the episode. I was listening last night. I think the most recent one you did for the patrons.
Mhm.
And you're talking about being able to do that stuff by hand, being able to picture it in your head. I was always good at that. I knew my city. I knew where things were. Because we had to memorize the map. I can still get around there, even though it's 20 years later and it's built up, because I know the core of the city. Now, there's plenty of suburbs now that I don't know the way around.
Now, as you're saying that, I would think that in your mind as well, in agreement here, that a geo ride, like a geographical ride, would be a good thing to do in the area. You know, when people call in with, you know, different landmarks, to be able to drive around there and see those, so that you can picture certain things like that. For me, I remember a call specifically where a gentleman had called in. His wife was having difficulty breathing, and they were not going to wait for an ambulance. I was trying to get them to stop so I could send someone to them. And he goes, "We're just driving to the nearest hospital." And where they were at, I had driven down that road in those back roads that he was talking so many times. I knew exactly where he was at, and I could give him every landmark that he was going to come up to, which light there was going to be, where to turn, and how far it was from there. And I remember at the end, he goes, "I don't know how you did that, but everything you said was exactly there. Thank you." And his wife ended up being okay. And, you know, I got off the phone. I actually had already had a partner calling the hospital saying, you know, these people are going over there. But it was because of that experience and knowing that area, that memorization and all, it helped so much when it came to a call just like that.
Yeah, when I was training, I always have the trainees go out and ride along and get a feel for what they're dispatching. In suburbia, I always wonder what city planners are on, because the street names. I think LSD, but that's a diversion. It's just so
It's possible.
strange. But there's a major thoroughfare, Wadsworth Boulevard, that goes up in the Denver metro area. And as it goes through Westminster, there's an old Wadsworth Boulevard that veers off, and it's a country road, and it's about a mile over from the Parkway. But they're both named Wadsworth. So they built a new one called the Parkway, and the boulevard is this little country road. And I had a dispatcher once who was from a suburb that was south of there, who didn't know that Wadsworth did that. And she was just amazed when she came back in, and she's like, "Did you know?" Yeah, oddly enough, I did. But yeah, you got to see it. You got to have a clue. You got to know where the railroad track goes through. When you're dispatching a hot call and it's 2:40 and that train is going through there, you better know that, because it makes a difference for your response. You better know what it means that he's coming from this location and she's coming from that location. Who's going to get caught by the train?
It's crazy, right? The types of things that that you will know, or that you need to know in some cases, just like you're talking. I remember the same types of things where, you know, they would say, you know, whichever train comes through at this time, and you're like, okay, we need to make sure that they get out of there, because it's going to be bad, you know, if something happens. And then, you know, you're also on pins and needles. If there's like nothing else going on, miraculously, you know, in dispatch, and it's just that call, that situation that's going on, you're just kind of waiting. Like, I don't want to hear that something happens. Let's make sure to, you know, to get done whatever needs to get done. But those types of things, it's nothing like it, right? It's 911.
Yeah. And yeah, I left in 2001 because I was pretty sure that shift work was going to kill me. Literally, that's not an exaggeration. And, but I still miss it. I don't shift work. I miss the centers, because dispatchers are like the best people I know. They're sharp, they're funny, they're engaging. And this job hurts them. Yeah,
it does. There's a lot that comes with it. And so I want to actually really quick to go back to the beginning really quick. The job that you were doing before you made your switch into public safety, was there any part of that you were able to take away and bring into dispatching? Because if you were, you know, facing, you know, customer service, I guess, if you had people that were coming in, I'm sure there were also conversations, like you were able to really connect with people as you're talking and showing different, you know, things. And I would think that would benefit you coming into
Yeah.
this profession.
Oh, yeah. Customer service and really listening to people, finding out what's really going on. Because don't know how to put it. I hadn't really thought about that. But makeup is so personal.
Mhm.
And when a woman comes in and wants a makeover and really is really looking to do something different with her style, there's a reason. And it's usually not anything to do with their looks. And so that sensitivity to be able to listen to people was really helpful. I wore an angel on my shoulder most of the years I dispatched because I think an angel on my shoulder always told me the right question to ask.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, a lot of
It's interesting how you put that, with those who are coming in, and just the way you explained it, that it's not about, how they look, that trust, that, being able to talk to them. It makes me think of how one speaks to a person who is calling in for help. They're trusting that voice. We don't see each other, but they're trusting that voice to get them that help. And it could be in any situation, especially with a suicidal caller. One of the things is, listening, like you were just saying, listening, kind of trying to find out a little bit more about them to relate with them as well, so that you
Mhm.
can keep them on the phone, especially, as long as you can, so that those who are going out there to help them can help them. And a lot of them, that's what they want. They do want
Mhm.
help. They want to speak to someone and such. Of course, there are some people who end up going through with it, but a lot of
Mhm.
them call in and they need that help. So everything that you said, it solidifies, at least to me, that definitely helped you out, especially when dealing with calls like that.
Mhm. Yeah. Compassionate listening is a hard skill um, to develop. And once you have it, compassion can be a double-edged sword, right?
Mhm.
Because we do care. If we didn't care, it wouldn't hurt us,
Right.
but we do care.
And that's where it gets a lot deeper, right? Especially when you're taking phone calls with, that have to do with kids, whether you have
Mhm.
kids or not. There's that, the fact that these children are innocent and all, and you don't want to, um, have a call where they're hurt or anything like that.
Mhm.
It sticks with you, right? And you mentioned of having, 3 children and stuff. This is early on. This is an 83 and all,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure their ages or anything at that time, but um, you're in this profession now, and I'm sure that made some of these calls a little bit harder and a little more personal as well.
Mhm. The probably one of the hardest calls that I ever dealt with wasn't something that would make sense on a textbook, but it came out in therapy years later. We had an accident where a child on a bicycle was hit by a pizza driver. It was back when Domino's had the 30-minute pizza,
Mm,
and the child was fine. The bicycle was banged up. The
mhm,
little pizza driver was shook up, but I mean, it was not a call to put in the books. It was just a routine call.
right.
It was within days after we'd given my 12-year-old her bicycle. Changes how you look at things.
Right.
It changes how you look at things. She and I were talking the other day, and I was reminding her or telling her that story because it was not big enough for me to notice at the time. But it was a factor in the compassion fatigue that I had to work so hard to get over. Um, and I said, and I think you need to thank me because I did let you go places. I did let you ride your bike.
Mhm.
And she's like, I never thought how hard that would have been. But it was tough. But yeah, the calls where the kids are hiding in the closet because their parents are fighting. And yeah.
Yeah, there's those moments where, you remember different things. So this was was probably a couple of weeks ago now, but um, I think it was we had some people over, and it might have been actually my youngest daughter. I'm not sure now, but I'm thinking that it also might have been one of the people that was here visiting. Their kid was walking around with a fork, and I remember I was like, "Oh, hold on, like put the fork down," and they're like, "What's wrong?" And I said, I took a call once where a kid had a fork in his mouth and it ended up going up into the roof of his mouth. The kid ended up
Oh,
being okay,
yeah.
but it
Oh,
it
that's
makes me
horrible.
think of that.
Yeah. Yeah. We had a call, and I didn't even work the call, and it changed my life, where the kids were competing to see who got the most marshmallows in their mouth. And one of them got one too many and aspirated and died.
Oh my.
And it changed how I feel about marshmallows forever. And I didn't even work the call. The
Mhm.
agency worked the call. And yeah, it changes you.
Right. Yeah. It's a definitely it's a hard thing all the way around.
Mhm.
It's a difficult job. It's stressful, but you know, there are also good moments.
Oh, yeah.
I, got to take part in the save of this little girl who ended up going out into the middle of ice that was, um, it was thin ice. And then later on, about a week or two later, the family put an ad in the local newspaper thanking dispatch and those who are out there to help her. And I still have that. I have that
Yeah.
clipping.
Yeah.
I'm so fortunate to have that. I took part in a birth. I didn't get a stork pin for it because because the dad, um, right as the child was being born, the dad ran away from the his home with his other child to drop off at the neighbors because they were going to have to go to the hospital. And I remember hearing him like huffing and huffing. And I said, "Sir, are you running?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just left my place." And I said, "You left your wife there?" And he goes, "I had to drop off my kid to my neighbor before we go to the hospital." And I said, "Oh," and I'm trying not to laugh on the phone because it was
Yeah.
just comical. And when he got back, his child had been born, so I didn't get a chance to. It didn't count.
No, but it counts. It counts.
Uh, it
And
was.
that's one thing. I never did EMD.
Mhm.
I'm so,
So,
I think I was scared of it.
oh, really?
Yeah.
There's a lot that goes into that as well, right? There's all these different
Mhm.
cards for those who are watching. EMD is emergency medical dispatch. It's a protocol that when we're taking these medical calls, you end up going. Now there's there was at the time when I was still dispatching as well. Pro QA is what it's called. It's it's on the computer where you can go through it and stuff. But what we had was these cards, and you, depending on the questions, you would flip to all of those. And sometimes, a lot of times, of course, because it's a medical, that's
Mhm.
nerve-wracking as well. And you're
Mhm.
like, all right, here we
Mhm.
go.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. It's an adrenaline hit for sure.
Your time in dispatch, and I ask this to almost all of my guests, what was your favorite part? Like, whether it be different incident types of calls that were coming in or training others, that next generation coming up. What was, I guess, really your favorite part about dispatching?
Um, Boy, it's kind of hard to narrow down my
Mhm.
favorite part about dispatching. I loved talking with officers. I loved keeping the mood good. Um, but what really, really thrilled me is if I caught somebody lying and I found them in the computer.
I am right there with you.
Yeah, that is a thrill. I solved a burglary one time because I was so bad on NCIC. Um, so it was a gun that I needed to enter.
Mhm.
So we entered pawn slips. And so I had to enter this gun. Well, I'm scared of guns, so I don't know anything about them. I was really good at NCIC. I read the manual on the computer, but I couldn't get this gun to go in. I finally ended up calling the Colorado Bureau of Investigations to get help with it. But I had entered that probably 6 times. And NCIC at the time was so generous because they would act like they took it.
Mm-hmm.
And then a minute later, you'd get spit back. Nope, not this one. And so I was really frustrated. But by the time I got this thing entered, I had memorized the serial number. Well, 3 nights later, I'm entering a burglary, all the stuff they had serial numbers for, and that gun was on it. This is after the pawn is entered. They had been on vacation when their house was burglarized, and so the stuff had been pawned. But yeah, I solved that burglary.
Nice.
It's great.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that.
It's that puzzle, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't lie to my officers.
That I fully agree. Those moments are those gotcha, type moments like that. That is awesome because not only are you taking calls, you're doing so many other things as it is, you're also helping to solve this case here. And also if if there's someone who's playing on the phone and you end up getting the location and you're able to find them. We had a lady who called, I don't know how many times, but it was a long time. It was enough that we knew exactly what time in the block of time within, 4 or 5 hours that she would do this on midnight shift. This was for a few weeks that she did this. And it was on an NSI phone, a non-service initialized phone, where for those who are watching and listening, an NSI phone is one of those phones where when it would come, the phone number would come in on the screen, it would have a 901 prefix because the phone had no data, it had no service, but it could still call 911, which is why we tell people on your phone, and it's different now because you can't just remove the battery from the phone, but if you have a phone where you can remove the battery and you give it to your kids to play with, the battery's still there, they're probably going to be able to call 911. But if you can take the battery off, then you're good to go. So that's the type of phone that this person had. And there's no location or anything. And I don't remember how on earth it happened, but we were able to find the person, and she ended up getting arrested for these weeks of abusing 911. Would call and would just swear at us and do all types of stuff. And when we finally got that person, I remember everyone in the room ended up doing yes. It was, like in the movie when on Armageddon, when they're trying to take out the the asteroid and stuff, or the comet rather, the whole thing that's coming to take them out, and they win. And everything ends up being fine, and everyone throws up their papers and they're like, yes, we did this. That's basically how it was in dispatch that night.
Oh yeah, a huge win. Yes. Yes. But
now, no, go ahead. What were we going to say?
Well, I love the phone calls. I love dispatching the officers. I love the impact that we could make on how the whole thing went. The outcome of the call pretty much depends on how much information you get and how accurate it is. And so I loved being part of that. Yeah.
You're making me miss it as well. I do miss it actually all the time. I definitely miss it. I don't miss, like you said, like the hours. I don't miss the hours and stuff. The missing almost everything that was happening when my kids were growing up. That's because that's a hard part as well, right? And that definitely makes for a lot of different hard things. But I miss the calls, those out in the field, those especially in the center that I worked with, that camaraderie, just all of it. I definitely miss that. The county politics, I don't miss though.
No. Mandatory overtime, don't miss it.
Oh, I know, right? That
Somebody
was
calling in sick on Sunday morning, I don't miss that.
That was it was always a hard thing because, those whatever hours you're working, we work 12 hours. So it easily turned into a 16-hour shift.
Mhm.
Now you had said that you left in 2001, right? Because the shift
Mhm.
work was like literally taking you out.
Yeah.
I guess building up to that point, you know, I guess what were some of the things that you were dealing with? What was going on? Was it anything medical, or I mean, I guess even just straight up stress? Was it just stress just too much? And I asked this too because, for me, I guess I didn't realize that I was having a lot of like back and shoulder issues
Mhm.
until I was out of dispatch, and when I
Mhm.
went to the chiropractor and they gave me an X-ray like you mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
my right shoulder was slightly higher. And they said, what have you been doing? And I said, that's 13 and a half years of holding my phone like this.
Mhm.
I get those knots as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So I lost the ability to sleep. Um, and I was on my favorite shift was always the midnight shift.
Mhm.
But it didn't matter what shift I was on. I was having a hard time sleeping. I had a call that, I left just as cell phones were coming in. And it was the first time I had an RP on the cell phone. I had her on the phone for about a half an hour when she was coming down US 36, which is the Denver Boulder Turnpike, because her younger son had called and said that her older son was hanging. And she wasn't about to pull over and let me send an officer to get her. She wasn't about to do anything. And I kept her on the line to try to help her stay focused. Um, and when that call was done, and the child did die, when that call was done, I started having cramps in my legs, in the back of my thighs. And that went on for, I don't know, a couple of weeks. And I got a hold of the EAP and I could see a therapist in 6 weeks. I couldn't sleep. Yeah, I was not in very good shape, emotionally or physically. Um, I got sent to, my friend was a nurse. Well, no, she's a professor now. So she was a nurse still. And she had a friend who she sent me to who was a massage therapist, a therapeutic massage therapist. And he was able to help me with my leg cramps. And we talked about what was going on. And I asked him how he dealt with other people's pain that way. And he said, well, I meditate for 2 hours every morning. You what? 2 hours? Who has time for that? But that was what that little tidbit helped me to start looking at meditation, and seeing the counselor helped. And there were a lot of things that helped me make the decision that I can't keep putting my heart at risk like that. So I left. I was in school and moved to Louisiana to stay with my mom and finish my school. And I did that. And then I went to school again, and then I went to school again, and then I went to school again. So it's been a long century so far.
It takes sometimes it takes a call or a certain incident or something to happen for us to realize that that we need some help, right?
Mm,
Or I don't know, just something personally, a feeling,
mm,
anything like that, is something that ends up happening where we have to then look at ourselves, right? And a lot of times people don't want to do that. I've said
mhm,
this many times, and I'll continue to say it because I was one of those people where I never looked in the mirror to
mm,
realize at the time when I was, bearing all my calls and all that it was me that was, having that issue. And
mhm,
so I needed to um for myself just kind of really take a step back.
mhm,
And it was in writing that I was able to find my own therapy that way. It was therapeutic for me to write out these calls and
Mhm.
to really get them out there. And then, others reading them and relating to them
Mhm.
and stuff is what really started everything that I do now. Um, Meditation was another thing. I bought a lot of books on meditating and just trying to figure it out.
Mhm.
And because I was ready to do anything,
Mhm.
anything to
Yeah.
help me kind
Yeah.
of become, one, I guess, with the world and myself especially. And that first time that I was able to actually sit there, control my breathing, close my eyes, and picture this flame in front of me. I remember feeling this type of warmth and oneness that I've never been
Mhm.
able to attain before. With that moment was amazing. And
Mhm.
I felt so much better afterwards. Like everything just seemed, it's hard to explain. It it was, but I felt so much better and I just started to practice it more. And sometimes when I was sitting in dispatch between phone calls and sometimes on phone calls, which kind of
Mhm.
sounds weird to anybody who's watching or listening because they would think you're that like, what do you do? You were closing your eyes and good thing you didn't fall asleep. No, that's not what it was. It
Mhm.
was just controlling my breathing is all it
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
during the phone call to stay calm. It
Mhm.
really, really helped out.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So when you breathe slowly,
Mhm,
it quiets your amygdala. The amygdala is the part of your brain that is fight or flight, that responds to things quickly. And you cannot breathe slowly if you are in danger. And so it has a relaxation effect, and it does help us stay calm. And there really is a lot that we can do.
mhm.
But the last time I left was not the first time that I was so out of kilter that I needed help. And so I knew that I was going to be on this merry-go-round if I didn't do something different. I was getting fat. I was cynical. And, I'm a really, really sweet person,
Mhm.
but I wasn't. I really wasn't. I was really kind of ugly sometimes, very sharp.
But you saw that, or you noticed that something needed to change.
Hmm.
And again, it's a hard thing to realize in yourself that you need to change something, especially when it comes to this profession as well, because
Hmm.
we are we're there to help people, right? And a lot of times we discard ourselves and what we need. We're always talking about self-care and everything, but um
We need to
sometimes
do it.
right, I was going to say yeah, we need to actually do it. Sometimes we don't do it when we talk about it, and
Mhm.
it's a big thing. Now, when you ended up going to school and everything else and you continued to go and continue to go and obviously you triumphed and everything, I guess at one point was it that you decided you wanted to do what you do now? Because you've always
Yes.
been, from what it sounds like, you've always been one who has helped out others,
Mhm.
and you just wanted to move forward. And as a
Mhm.
trainer, it sounds like you were training those that were coming in, that next
Mhm.
generation, to do other things and to learn from your experience as well.
Mhm. Yeah. So, I'm finishing up my doctorate. I've been approved. My doctoral work has been approved. I just have to finish getting it formatted. Um, and so my official title now is Reverend Doctor. I'm so excited.
That's
But
amazing.
my doctoral work, my doctoral thesis is addressing compassion fatigue through spiritual practice. And so I developed a practice to teach to the staff where I worked at a children's home. I was a chaplain at a children's home. And it's the same sort of thing where they work shift work, where they're dealing with other people's emotions all the time, where they get mandated overtime, where they don't have control over their workflow, where things can go wrong. You can go from 0 to 100 in a split second. And it's the same kind of stressors in a completely different environment. And I took a group through that, through the work that I do, the training that I do. and help them to develop a spiritual practice. I teach that you can sit in silence for 5 minutes a day and it will make a difference in your life. And it's true. It does. The side effect of taking this group through this is that they connected with each other in a different way, and it helped build the strength of the teams. And I was meditating and praying on the work and asking for guidance on what do I need to do with this work? Why this work? And because I'm 68, I retired last year. You know, who gets a doctorate in their 60s?
You do.
Yeah, apparently that would be the only answer I know. And actually, I'm not a unicorn. There are other people my age who are doing it. So, that was the answer that came, was that you need to help your 911 community, because it is the thing that I see the most that is so harmful. This job is vital. It's necessary. It is, my goodness, I think it's the fulcrum of our society, and not just police and emergency services, but it's an important piece of who we are as a community. And when our communications people are healthy and strong and can serve the public with kindness and serve the officers and firefighters and medics with kindness, it elevates our communities. And it helps. I mean, this is world-changing work that can have a profound effect on our children's lives and on the communities that they're raised in. It's really, really important for somebody to help them see that we really need to do this, and it's not that hard. We can do this, because you start a new habit. There's just 4 little principles, but one of them is you got to keep it small. You got to keep it doable, because consistency is more important than quantity or quality when you're starting a new habit. And so if you do something for 5 minutes a day and you celebrate it and you keep feeling good about it, you will get to where you build up to a really strong habit. And so that's the work. And that's why, because I really believe in the profession and in the people who are engaged in it, that these are people who absolutely deserve and need the attention. They need somebody to notice that they're suffering and help them to get better. And I think in the work, that part of my work is going to be helping chiefs of police, sheriffs, chiefs, fire chiefs, to understand how important this role is. You know, it's an undervalued role. Why? I think it's because we're the moms, and moms are undervalued. And I know that not every dispatcher is female, but it is the same role where you're there to take care of everybody else and you get ignored. And that's exactly what happened. It's what happened to my mama. It's what happened to me when I was the mom. You know, when I was raising kids, I wasn't the one that got lots of attention. So I gave it.
That is an interesting way to look at it, as to, why they're getting ignored. I just listening to you, I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like that's an interesting way to look at it, for sure. And it makes sense. It makes sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this is everything that you're doing with Shape Good Habits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm putting out the videos so that the people that know me know what I'm up to, and I'll help other stressed out people. I'm all about helping people, but my heart is for 911. So.
Yeah, and explain those videos a little bit here. So I see them because we're friends on Facebook, but we're also connected on LinkedIn. So what is behind the videos as well? It starts out with a word on like a dry erase board, and then you kind of pull back and then you start talking about it as well. What is, I guess, what was some of the motivation for that? Just getting out more of what it is that you do, or just kind of trying to focus on something every day or every other day for, like you were saying, with consistency?
Yes. So the biggest motivation is verily, verily, Edie, get over yourself. This work is really, really, really important. And I have this thing where I'm not that important, and why should people listen to me? And I'm trying to get over myself, because it's not about me, it's about the people. And if I'm going to be shy about it and think that people don't need to listen to me just because I'm me, then the work doesn't get out. And it's not about me. It's not about my voice. It's about the work. And I need to get out of the way of the work. So I'm putting out videos. I started out every day, and then now I'm doing them twice a week. And I started a YouTube channel. So all the videos that I've done have been on, they're now on my YouTube channel, which is Shape Good Habits. So yes, and if you get to 100 people on your YouTube channel, you can get a decent URL. So yeah, come and follow me on YouTube.
Right. Yeah, that's
So,
right. I'm trying to do the same thing with the new one that I opened up, because I had an old one that was like at 400 or 500, but I started from scratch because I was trying to do it from the actual media page, not my personal one. So
okay.
you and I are there with you.
Okay. So yeah, let me know.
I'll subscribe to yours, and yeah, well,
Yeah, I'll subscribe to yours, because that's how it, at the end of a couple of videos, I'm like and share, because that's what people do. I mean,
Right.
if the work is good for you, then share it with your friends, because it needs to get out there. I'm more about service than anything else. I really want this work to get out there. I really want it to help people because of the value. So one other thing that I've done, I'm a retired chaplain.
Yes.
So I talked to Sarah at 911 Wonder Women, and I'm their volunteer chaplain. We're figuring out what that means and how that's going to work.
Oh, that is going to be great.
If someone is having struggles and they need to talk to a pastor, then I can be that. They can get a hold of me on Messenger, or yeah, we'll figure it out. So
that is excellent. How can people find out more about Shape Good Habits, all of your work, everything that you're doing? Is there a website, social media? How do people get a hold of you?
Okay, so shapegoodhabits.com, because I'm simple. I also have a little web page called Stronger 911 that has a link to talk to me, so you can make an appointment to talk to me. And I think that might be the link that I'm going to use on 911 Wonder Women, because it's a video chat. It's a Zoom call, and I would like to see people's faces. So on social media, by my name, Edie DeVilbiss, on Facebook and LinkedIn, and what's that? Oh, Instagram. Yeah. So I am my age, and it's all new. I mean, I've been on Facebook since 2008, because when I went to seminary, they invited us to a Facebook group to get to know our co-students. And that's where I see pictures of my grandkids, because my grandkids are all over the country.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, as we get into the wrap up of this episode, it has been awesome to finally get you on here to hear more about your story, your background, your work up into, everything that you were doing with public safety, the passion that you have for everything that 911 dispatchers and call takers do, answering the call, the thin gold line, the most vital piece of public safety dispatch. That passion, you can hear it in your voice and the way you talk, the tone, just everything. And especially in the beginning, right before we got started, and you said common spelling for your last name. That was amazing. So it has been an honor and a pleasure to have you on here. And wrapping this up, where do you see Shape Good Habits in just the next few years? Like with everything that you're doing, what is it that you want to do for that? And I guess also, when people who are out there answering the call, if they ever feel like they need help, like what are your thoughts? What is your advice? Where do you see Shape Good Habits? And for those who are looking for help, how would you answer them?
Okay. So those are two big different questions. So for specific thoughts on how to change habits, certainly the YouTube channel is something to go look at.
Mm-hmm.
I try to be as available as possible. For the business, my goal is I'm working on a 2-hour training to have it be something that is readily available to dispatchers in the chair. But I also want to work with agencies to develop this team thing, the camaraderie that comes from doing this work together, connecting with each other in a different way. And I am my age. I figure I've got a good 10 years in me to work hard. I think I might, and I don't know, because I'm absolutely the most vibrant I've ever been. I'm the healthiest I've been in my life. So maybe it will be much longer than 10 years, but my hope is to train others in my role and license them and keep the work going through other people, because one woman can't do it all. And that's long term. Right now, I need to finish making this video, figure out how to market it, how to hire a web designer. Right now, my sister's helping me with my web design. My daughter's helping me as my virtual assistant. And so it's a team effort. And my sister's work is top notch. When you see my website, you'll see what I mean. She's really good. But I need to have pros, and I need it to go further than I can reach it. My big hairy, what they call it, BHAG, is to be invited to Australia to serve the police agencies there, and have them pay for me to go.
That would be awesome. Well,
Yeah.
we have a lot of listeners that listen out of Australia as well. So
yeah. Well, and
we'll see what happens.
England and Canada and South Africa, and there's so many South American countries that have really fine emergency response systems. I would love to work everywhere. So
That would be amazing. And everything that you have said and your work is amazing as well. So thank you so much for the job that you did, for the job that you do now, and everything that you're going to be doing in the future. Thank you so much for being on.
And thank you for the interview, and thank you for selecting me for Dare to Be Great. I am so excited to be able to pour into my community. Yes,
it's going to be amazing. I am excited to have you and everyone else there. I will be right back here with you. And for those who are watching, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us. And that is going to be wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches podcast. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. And if you're looking for any bonus content, you can check us out and support us on patreon.com/WTT podcast. And this episode can be seen on Facebook, YouTube, as well as LinkedIn and Twitter. And you can listen 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone.